UAP, unidentified anomalous phenomenon. Are they extraterrestrial, interdimensional, time travelers in origin, or are they simply a result of top-secret military projects, false flag alien invasions, PSYOP, drones, or other human-made aircraft? Join the discussion now on UAP Cross Fire.
Well, good evening to the greatest audience on the planet. Welcome back to KGRA-DB. Tonight, it is the Silverback Don Ecker and myself starting out. Hopefully, Chris DePerno will be joining us. He has a very important family event that we're celebrating that he is attending tonight. And the Padre is coming back from some travel on some medical checks, and we hope all those went well, and our prayers and support go to him. And I will always like to start the show out now with God's peace that surpasses all knowledge and understanding, because I have a feeling tonight's show, and our guest is right behind his signature page from his website, it's right behind my head, will be joining us in a moment. And I think it's going to be another one of those fairly engaged, fast-moving shows. I really was very fortunate. We just had a little pre-show warm-up with him, and I think everyone's going to really enjoy him greatly. So we're looking forward to that. Mr. Ecker, how are you? And more importantly, how is your lovely bride, Vicky?
We are doing quite well right now. Thank you very much. We've been daily getting more and more into the Christmas experience. We got our tree up. We got outside decorations up. We've been decorating the tree. We've been wrapping some gifts and what have you. Vicky has family baggies that we always send a box or two of goodies back to them. And other than that, the weather has quite a bit warmed up, Commander Cobra. For example, today, believe it or not, it was in the low 80s, supposed to be something like that again tomorrow. So I can't complain about snow, ice, or anything else. But to be honest, coming from the East Coast, from Pennsylvania, at this time of year, if the truth be told, I do miss the snow. But as long as I'm out here, there's not a heck of a lot I can do about it.
Well, I'll continue to take some pictures and send them to you so that you can ease yourself while you're having ice added to your drink. And I'm drinking hot cocos. Actually, I obviously love the snow. That's why I came back to this part of the world for the seasons. But when the wind chill,
well, when I got back from Southeast Asia, and I had been, as you know, I'd been injured pretty badly over there. My body chemistry underwent a big change.
Transformation, yeah.
And as a result, that first year back in September in Pennsylvania, I was shaking like a dog trying to expel a peach seed. So if that gives you any hint, you know what I'm talking about.
Well, let's bring our guest on, RM Almonte. Ramon for us tonight is another one of these wonderful people who is willing to put up with a somewhat strange email outreach. And he was my driving companion to work one morning on a Coast to Coast episode. And I really, really, truly enjoyed just listening to him and his exchange and his take. So I actually, Ramon, did a bit of a current avant-garde approach. There's no way I was going to be able to read your books before I got you on the show with things going on. So I AI'd and asked it for some synopsis, and then I went and read some covers that are on there. I'll eventually get through all the books because it really was quite interesting. And if you listen to our opening, you probably understand that why I think you're a really interesting and strong guest, because you've been kind of living life experience, this experience that you understand that this is all connected, that there isn't a school or a discipline for one area. You've kind of have the whole enchilada rolled up very nicely, and you transmit it quite nicely, quite beautifully, in fact, in your books and the way you speak. So, welcome to UAP Crossfire and KGRA Radio and the greatest audience on the planet.
Thank you so much. The first thing I have to say is that no matter how much we know, we really don't know anything. And all the information you've gathered over the years, your experiences and stuff can change at the switch of a, what is it? What's the saying? At a flip of a dime. Because
Drop of a hat.
drop of a hat. There we go.
Flip of the switch.
Yeah, I'm even forgetting English. Yeah, everything, all the information we've learned about this and just life in general, with everything encompassing it, something can happen where it would just throw all that out the window, or at least put it in a whole new perspective. It's kind of the idea of you have the 8 blind guys touching the elephant, and they're all saying it's a snake. No, it's this, it's that, and it's you pull back and it's like, oh, it's an elephant.
So, one of the things you had a call, and you said you're pretty sure you know which call I'm referring to. And after the way you just this very genuine exchange you had with the caller on Coast to Coast, the caller said that he actually knew you, and I believe he was a wrestler. And immediately you were able to call up his name, and you started to talk, and you guys actually had a quick conversation. And George Norrie, being George Norrie, was actually quite, I know that there's a big time limit, like anytime when you have calls on the show. But it was such a genuine connection because you didn't know each other well, but you did meet and you had made a connection and you knew that. And I thought it was actually so genuine because it just lent a real credibility to all the other things that you said, all the other things. And we, a lot of us talk about our families. That's what Chris tonight has, a family event, a very important one. And like I said, he'll be joining us hopefully in a little bit. And that really got me thinking, I got to reach out and see if I can grab this guy before the end of the year, because we go into a holiday break here pretty soon. And I wanted to really get the opportunity because you are on a very large book tour and you're going to set a record when you do it. So why don't you tell the audience a little bit about what's happening, which book it is?
Yeah. So if you look right there where I'm pointing at, that one is called, oh, thank you. It's called Fogs of Time. And when the book came out, in the mornings, I always listen to a lot of motivational guys, and they always talk about be you, be genuine. What makes you different? Are you like everybody else? And then I thought it was the norm to do a big book tour. At least most of the states, not including Alaska and Hawaii. And at first, that's what I was going to do because I thought that was the norm. That's what I thought all the old school guys used to do. But no, they didn't do that. And then my manager was like, yeah, nobody's ever done that. And I was like, okay, we got to do it. We have to do it. I don't know how we're going to do it, how we're going to pay for it, but it has to get done. So I'm going from state to state. Right now, we cover 10 states. And in January, we have another, I think, 16, 17 states set up, and we're trying to set up some more states to do the book signing. So if you guys can go to my website, it's rmalmonte.com. There we go. So just go on there and then you can look for it. It says World Record Info. Click on that, and then you'll find all the places I'm going to be at.
So when do you think you're going to complete it? If you can keep to, not the loose plan, but do you think you're going to get it all done in 26? Because the way I think you're moving, I think you will.
I think the way we're moving now, December really hurt us because.
Sure. Yeah, the government shut down, and they had all the other things that were going on. That slowed everything down.
The government shutdown wasn't a part of it. I wish I could say it was, but it was mostly just the stores saying like, "Oh, we're so busy during this time, we can't set up any author signings." And I was like, "Okay," but what I did do is I reached back to the stores that had us already and say, hey, all the other stores are telling us no for December. Can we come again? And 2 stores said yes. So Monday I fly out and I will be in West Virginia for a whole week from Monday through Friday in Morgantown at the Barnes and Noble there. So she was kind enough to let us come back. And actually, this time she said, "No, go ahead, do the whole week." And
Ramon, let me
sir.
ask you. Your book that was just posted on the page here, Fogs of Time. What's the basic premise of that for our audience?
Oh, absolutely. So, many of you don't know I grew up in New York City, and my family is from Dominican Republic. And if you've ever been to New York, especially what's called the Washington Heights area, which actually, real quick funny story. When I went to Battle Creek, Michigan, there's an area there called Washington Heights, and everybody thought I was from Battle Creek, Michigan. And I was like, "No, that's in New York." They're like, "Oh, okay."
Well, we don't want your book then.
Yeah, but so in Washington Heights is predominantly Dominican, back especially when the book takes place in the late 80s, and it's about this young girl named Maria, and her brother is a drug dealer. He gets killed during a drug exchange, and this green fog comes to visit her. Years later, she goes to college, and when she's crossing the bridge, the green fog comes back, starts drawing her through time, and then she comes face to face with her brother.
So this is basically a work of fiction, not reality, correct?
Which one will sell more books? Yes, it's fiction, 100% fiction. The some of the basis is based on true stories, not things that happened to me directly. Example, the whole part about her brother being killed and him being a drug dealer, that was actually based off a friend of mine's. His uncle was killed when I was 9 years old. He's 2 years older than me, 11. And I remember going to the funeral and hearing the stories, which horrified me. And it was the first time I was exposed to that kind of lifestyle of what could happen if you got into that game, which a lot of people don't really know about. And it's good. That's not something you need to know about. But I was exposed to it in the sense of the violence in it and what could happen. And unfortunately, he was beaten so bad that they couldn't have an open casket. So that's where the idea came from. And that neighborhood there was actually, my aunt lived there, and every weekend my dad used to take us up there. So that's where it comes from.
So Ramon, let me add to this part about the book. There was a number of callers on Coast to Coast, and I think you have also expressed that there's been some folks at the signings that have expressed this kind of paranormal experience. The fog, the time loss that people have experienced. You know, some. I think the psychology part of it is that we self-hypnotize, like we're in vehicles and have time loss. But there's other factors to it that don't quite fit neatly into that kind of piece. So why don't you expand on that a little bit?
So a lot of the story does come from other people's story, and of course I added my own twist and you know, as I'm writing it. But before I go into that, the part I don't know if I don't think I went too deep into it. It actually all started with a dream, a couple dreams, and one of the dreams was that I saw this man. He was in the 1950s. He was driving one of those 1950 cars, and in the front view he can see the sunrise. In the back mirror, what's that called? In the back, he could see the sunset, and he starts freaking out in the car. And in that same dream, it cut to another scene where I'm seeing this Victorian couple, and they start fading out of existence. And that's where the beginning, the idea of Fog's Time come from. So one of the stories that really caught my attention with the fog, and why I went with the fog and not a time machine or a portal, as a lot of stories will go, was the story in France with the two educators. I think it was like 1901. They went there, and all of a sudden they're back in the 1700s, and they can see what was her name? Not Queen Elizabeth.
Marie Antoinette.
Marie Antoinette.
Yeah, Marie Antoinette. Yeah, And if I'm not mistaken, she was the one who was beheaded, correct?
Yes.
Well, yes, she made some bad dietary recommendations, and the people didn't like it.
Yeah. So
Dealing with cake, by the way. It was,
Calories. It's. I tell you, you just got to pay attention to that stuff.
yeah, that would definitely make you lose your head. But yeah, so that's where the beginnings of the story comes from, and the whole thing about the fog. And what I've seen from what I was coming as I was like studying and looking at it, what I started to notice is that certain things come into play. For example, humidity and how much magnetism is in the air. So, during a thunderstorm, the air might get very staticky, very full of, let's just say electrons for now.
Sure.
And that can cause somebody to jump time and then jump back. Like I almost feel like they're going through a clear rubber band and they can see this different time period and then they get snapped back to theirs. Um, Now, the people that don't come back, we never hear the stories. So, for obvious reasons, unless they jump to the future and we just haven't gotten to that point in time where they came from, let's say, yesterday, and now they're 50 years into the future.
So I'm gonna bring up United Earth in a little bit. The reason I wanted to set that up just a tiny bit is that you've had a very interesting life experience. You could have fallen really off the edge of the earth. You could have been drawn into your own kind of fog along the way, and you went off to Asia. You were in Japan I think it's a very interesting place. I spent a bit of time there myself, mainly around the Japanese martial arts. So I really appreciate that culture. Um, I think that your life experiences and the way you put that together gives you a very interesting way that you look at things. You look at things from a slightly different perspective, a different kind of angle on, because you have some pretty interesting conclusions on UAPs, UFOs, paranormal, and in your books. Again, I haven't had a chance to go through United Earth, but that series has some very interesting tie-ins to all those areas. One of the things we talk about a lot here, and we're going to ask you a little bit about tonight, is your stance on disclosure and what you think is going on, because Don and I both agree that, or in agreement, that we're probably not going to learn uh, clearly, easily, directly from the government what is there, what is being
exactly.
collected for information and things like that. So one of the things that we have talked about is that all of this is tied together. And I got the impression from listening to you speak, what you've just said tonight, that you are in agreement that we're not just talking about UFOs or cryptids or paranormal. All of this is laced together. And to bring up last week's guest, who preceded you a couple nights before I heard you on Coast to Coast, uh, Professor McCanny was there, and he was talking about how the electrical fields that he has theorized and discovered and put some pretty good evidence out. I found the two conversations because you brought it up again. You talked about in this kind of a fog, the electrical environment, the electrons, the movement of things going on there. I would even go as far as to say something like a plasma field. These things that are happening that trigger around it. It's pretty interesting tie-in. Now, you guys come from two opposite ends of the spectrum, but here within a couple days of each other, I catch both of you on this, and you're both kind of bringing in this same kind of interwoven world that we live in. And of course, you have a artist's kind of approach to this. You're that's how you're weaving it together. So I'm really looking forward to getting some of your take on disclosure. But I want to turn it over to Don because I think he's ready to put a question out.
no, I'm fine. Ramon, about 2 years ago, and I've been involved in this in a very serious way since about 1988. I became the director of research for UFO magazine, which my wife and her business partner, Sherry Stark, began in 1986. I came on board in '88, And by 89, we were up and running. We did it for over 20 years. I mean, which in that genre, UFO magazine, that was unheard of. No magazine that ever approached that subject lasted more than 3, 4, or even 5 years. We had a reputation of really gearing into the heart of the matter. Now, my wife was before the magazine, a working journalist. I was a criminal investigator. Okay, I medically retired in 1986. I was injured in the line of duty. And to make a long story short, I approached this from the get-go like a criminal investigation. Now, I have had several sightings of the phenomenon, okay? I may have had an experience even more personal than that. I've never really talked about it because, quite frankly, I don't know. We've known everybody in the field worth a damn going back to the beginning. Bud Hopkins, okay, one of the most famous of researchers that have taken a look at the abduction phenomena, even hypnotized me to try to get to something that had happened to me. I had a period where I was driving in 1968 back to college from a weekend home, and I had a 2-hour missing period that I didn't even realize I had until I got to a restaurant that I would stop at every week that I went home because they had homemade cinnamon buns that were delicious, and I would go in and get a cup of coffee and a cinnamon bun. Now, normally this would be about 8 o'clock when I got there. I would leave home around 6:15. It was roughly a 2-hour drive over there. And lo and behold, when I walked into the restaurant, it was 10 p.m. I had absolutely no idea what had happened. None. I mean, and that stuck with me for years. So anyway, yeah, there's no doubt in my military mind that there's something to this. So at any rate, 2 years ago, after having beaten on this for well over 30 years, and knowing the people that I have known, I ended up writing a paper on disclosure because, quite frankly, I got tired of all the people in this field that have never deemed it worthy enough to do any real research into the background and just basically glom onto something and run with it. Quite frankly, not knowing where their ass was, even if they had 2 hunting dogs, a search warrant, and a mirror, okay? So, this paper, I've come to the conclusion there is what is known in the IC, the intelligence community, a basic core secret that was probably discovered around the time of Roswell, 1947, whatever happened there, whatever that was. And it is surrounded by what is known as a SAP, a Special Access Program. Now, what that means is, unless you are at the very pinnacle, at the top of the heap, you're never going to have an idea of what is included in that, much less this information being disclosed to the public. And that's been my mainstay from, well, ask Commander Cobra and any of the other people on this show. This is a very troubling thing. Now, the idea that we might run into disclosure, to me, is ludicrous. Because whoever has their thumb on that, now this is my take on it, okay? They'll go to the grave with that. Where do you come down on any of that?
I agree 100% with you that they will take it to the grave, but I think we're living in a time where it's beyond them in the sense of, because the thing is, you might block what I see on the internet, you might block what I hear on the radio, or even the books that come out about it. And you can even make it as you're an idiot and a wacko if you even talk about it. But the experiences that we're having as human beings throughout this planet, because if we said, okay, it's just in your area, so something's wrong with you people, but no, it's going on globally, and people are connecting with these different beings on many different levels.
Well,
Missing
for what it's
time.
worth,
Yeah.
I believe that not only are they here, but they are walking among us.
Exactly. I
I
agree.
have no doubt. I have no doubt. Now, what the agenda is, well, my God, who knows? But they are walking among us. And furthermore, I think it's highly conceivable that in many areas, they're working to shape events.
Yes. 100% agree, or even stopping events, as we know them going over the missile silos in both Russia, England, and the US, and who knows where else. That's just the ones we know of. But
I would
that they,
imagine China these days.
yeah, agreed, and even India and Pakistan as well. I haven't heard any stories out of there, but anybody who has these kind of weapons, they're definitely going to be watching that very, very closely. Now, as far as their agenda, it's kind of, the way I look at it is like, what is Cobra Commander's agenda? What is your agenda? What is my agenda? What is, so every one of these groups are going to have different agendas. Some of them just might be purely scientific and they just are watching. They don't care either way. Other ones have a vested interest for whatever reason.
Well, I think our DNA and what have you, I have no doubt in my mind that over the millennia, they have tinkered with it. I really believe that.
Not only they tinker with it, but that they follow certain family genetics as well. I Because, for example, like my grandmother has had some weird experiences, and my dad has had some weird experiences. I haven't had anything that was solid, but in my dreams, I've had a lot of weird experiences. Is it missing time? I couldn't tell you because it's during the dream state, so it's easy to write off. For the exception of one in particular where they were almost showing me like, "Hey, we're here," but even that was easy to write off. If you want, I could tell you guys about that experience. I didn't talk about it on Coast to Coast.
You did not. Go ahead. I mean, love to hear it.
So I was living in Japan in an area called Nagareyama, which is not too far from Tokyo, about a 45-minute train ride. And there's everywhere in Japan, they have the little balconies because people dry their clothes out there. Even though they're a first world country, people still prefer to dry their clothes by the air. So I step out there and it's nighttime. I look up at the sky and my eyes, they turn into night vision. Like I saw a screen go over my eyes and I could see this silver ball in the sky. And it looked like daytime from my point of view. Then in less than a few seconds, it went back up and there was nothing there. And it's like, it never happened. Because what kind of proof can I say? Oh yeah,
Sure. No, that hasn't ever returned or happened to you again.
No.
Interesting.
And it was something that didn't make sense because since when can we have screens come down like that?
Right.
So
And it's a really good way to describe it because you don't know what the phenomenon was, how it happened, what happened. So I think that's a really fair kind of.
And I don't think it's unique to me. I just think
No, it's
I'm
probably not
crazy enough to talk about it.
Right. And again, the other night, you got quite a few people when you talked about a couple of things that had gone on, a couple of things in the book. You got a lot of people that explained their very close parallel kinds of experiences on there. You know, what had happened to them. That's one of the things that I want to circle back what Don had brought up. So we have made such a mess of disclosure for whatever reasons. Maybe some good, maybe some not so good. I call it the X Files on one end of it. The X Files is we made a deal. Some folks have decided that we're going to be to save some are going to be served up. The other side of it is that we have we're afraid that we were going to lose control, that we couldn't keep control, that the planet population was going to go kind of crazy. So again, our self-appointed betters in both types of cases, we're going to suppress this. We're going to control it. And I agree with you, given the times that we live in now, and this is a really key area that I want to spend, we probably will even drag it a little bit again into the next hour. We have so much information now that it can't be controlled. So the only way that you can wrest any kind of influence on it, I'm trying to choose the words correctly, math major, so it's going to be a little bit difficult with you wordsmith types that know how to bend the phrase real well. Do you just keep loading more and more into it? Do you keep adding more and more diversion into it? Do you keep throwing into the spectrum of radio, television, everything we're doing on social media, our phones? Do you overload it? And now we have this AI thing that's going on that can create almost, you could take your dreams and put information in and can work and manipulate AI to give a really good explanation of what you verbally said, a visual presentation of your dreams. Now, here's the problem that I have. A number of people have, in fact, I was talking with just before I came on the show, a good friend from KGRA was discussing using AI to give a visual depiction of a UFO experience, UAP experience that he had. Once you do that and you show that to people, it's sort of like the Schroeder's cat thing. You've changed now the experiment. You have crossed into it and you have created something that you can say that's really, really close, or it's a dead-on comparison of it. But now you have shown something that's not real to depict the real, that characterization. And that's going to change other people who see it and what their perception goes forward. You could do the same thing with what you were talking about, the screen coming down and going up and what you saw there. I think it would be actually pretty cool to have you do something like that and you come through and explain it. But
Well,
now,
to give you an analogy, Commander Cobra,
go ahead.
anytime they do a historical film or historical project, for example, Band of Brothers, the battle in the Bastogne, okay, that was basically a fictional reenactment of a real event.
Right.
Now, what's the difference?
Well, in one, somebody really died.
No. What's the difference between reenacting that World War II event and somebody? Now, I'm not trying to be argumentative, but
well, that would be the first time. Ramon's going to have to come by more often.
okay, all right, I'll cop to that. All right. No, but seriously, between an AI reenactment and a film depiction.
Okay.
If I can answer that.
Go ahead, jump in.
Because I've tried to use, at least with Sora, I've tried to use it to kind of make trailers for my books and stuff like that. And also depict those kind of scenes that will cost me so much money if I wanted to film it. The problem with Sora, with AI that I'm finding now, for example, extremely hilarious. If I wanted to do one where I took a picture of a gray, took a picture of myself with my book, and then I wanted the gray behind me holding my book, and AI turned me into an old white guy. So it did the gray perfectly, but it couldn't do me correctly. And if I take any image and then I want to make a second image, it would change the face of it. Is like it's not that great. And if you look at it well enough, there's supposedly a new one that's much better. I don't know the name of it off the top of my head that doesn't do that anymore. But my biggest problem with the whole UFO thing, going back to that, and even before that it was CG, now it's AI and everything is CG AI. I don't care if we brought an extraterrestrial right now and interviewed him for 6 hours, it's still going to be AI and CG. And my question always is, if we're that good to fake something like that, then we should be in Hollywood, don't you think? Or
Probably.
anybody, or anybody who can fake, some of these. There's some of them that it's obviously that's fake.
Well, who knows what the cutting edge is right now that the IC or the federal government may have access to.
That's a,
19
that's
in
a whole
19
different.
Yeah, but
like,
in,
like
in
Project
19
Bluebeam, for example.
in 1962, basically the Cuban exiles were going to invade Cuba during the reign of Fidel Castro. The CIA was in it up to their eyebrows. I forget now what the name of the project was.
Mockingbird? Operation Mockingbird? What the
I
No,
don't-
something
I don't
pigs.
think
The
so.
Bay of Pigs, wasn't it?
Well, it was the Bay of Pigs, yeah. But the CIA had plans to fake the return of Jesus Christ in the skies over Cuba. Now, what they had to do that, I have no idea. I have no idea what technology they may have been playing. It didn't happen, all right? But it involved Jesus Christ, Mary Magdalene, a whole bunch of stuff. And of course, we all know what happened in the Bay of Pigs. It collapsed. There were World War II surplus aircraft down in, I believe, the Dominican Republic, B-26 Marauders, if I recall, that they were going to fly bombing missions in. Kennedy canceled that, okay? Never happened. As a result, there were other screw-ups, perhaps some sabotage with these guys going in, and they got slaughtered, okay? The Cuban exiles never forgave Kennedy, and they also, if you believe some of the rumors, may have had something to do with his assassination with the CIA. It's hard to say, but this stuff has been going on forever. Now, today, God only knows what technology is available. We don't have it, okay? We may have a taste here, a taste there, AI, but like you were just saying, you were trying to do a specific thing with it, it wouldn't do it. Don't you for a second think they don't have something that will give them exactly what they want.
I just want to throw in a quick note that Skywatcher threw into the chat. Operation Northwoods is what you were talking about, Don. That was the
Okay.
name of it. So one more piece I want to add to this, since we're talking about the real and not real. Don, you're going to use your NVGs. I've flown a couple thousand hours at night on NVGs. Ramon's experience with his dream state, whatever that was, kind of had an NVG kind of presentation. The interesting thing I always like to bring up with it, you're not seeing directly when you have NVGs on. There is a collection of light. It activates a phosphorus screen, and you're actually seeing a screen. You're seeing the photons enhanced and in there. You're not able to see through it. It's actually quite amazing when you think about it. It makes you see at night in a way that you can't.
Just to be clear, you're talking about the goggles.
The goggles over your eyes, or a lot of that type of equipment that uses that, because you have to have this very thin screen. But if you have them on and there's no power, you can't see through them. They're not binoculars with a film in it. That film completely blocks your vision, but you are able to see the real world in a way that you cannot possibly see with the physiology of our eyes.
It actually made me dizzy the first time I put them on.
Yeah, well, that's not an uncommon effect. Of course, the very interesting piece of gear, unbelievable safety and tactical prowess that goes with it. But I always like to point that out, that to see more of the real world, you have to separate yourself out from it, and it's kind of a unique angle to it. And I think that is representative to what Don was talking about, that we have had countless experiences along the way that have cut out or taken out reality and given a version of it, and as a possible way to move it. Well, late, but with great pleasure, Ramon, I introduced you to Chris DeFerno. He's an
Ramon, how are you?
Good,
And great
good.
panache, I might add. Great panache.
How nice was the recital tonight?
Oh, you know what? I got to tell you something. It was my granddaughter's first recital, and I sat there, and it was beautiful. I mean, it was in a beautiful church. Everybody, all the children were dressed up. It was just fabulous to see that. And you say to yourself, because we look at this world right now, and it's all going to hell. And here's all these beautiful, innocent children singing wonderful, holiday songs. And it just makes you think, why we can't do the same thing. But
Amen, Chris. Amen.
It just gets me that these kids really, I think parents ought to start taking some lessons from their little children about innocence.
I'm glad you said the way you did, because I'm gonna kind of, I don't think I'm gonna embarrass, but I'm gonna highlight. Ramon's got a great little boy that he talked a little bit about the other night when I was listening, and I think I'm hearing in the background every now and then. Now I may be catching that now.
I keep texting my wife to keep him.
Oh no!
No! Bring him on! What the hell?
We might need him pretty soon here to fill in for one of us. So let's not be pushing up any talent. But I think you have a really kind of cool, neat connection with your son, and in that kind of innocence.
Oh, he talks about UFOs all the time. And
now, where would he get that, loves, Dad? Where would that come
from?
from?
Have no idea, because he doesn't get that from me. Yeah. That's one of the things I was talking about before, where there's this, and I'm starting to feel, because with the families I've talked to where they talk about, like, oh, my dad had this weird experience, and his mother had this weird experience, and her mother, and what I find in those families is that they tend to be very open and talkative about it. Now, will there be families where those things happen and they just don't talk about that, so they're not labeled crazy? That is a possibility. But I also feel that how you look at the world, somehow they're picking that up. Because think about it, if I'm a stranger in your land, and I know that you're a very open-minded person, that I can go knock at your door, say, hey, want to learn about your people, that you're not just gonna, tie me up and burn me at the stake, that you're actually gonna sit down and talk to me, then I'll be more likely to go to you than I would to somebody who will do the opposite, So I feel that a lot with these extraterrestrials, that somehow they can monitor consciousness and dreams, and they'll give you little hints in there. Now, is the government doing things? Absolutely. Is there psyops? I mean, there's psyops for everything. You think about it, and they've done it. But I don't concern myself with that, because what's most important for me is what I'm experiencing, what I'm seeing, coming in contact one-on-one. For example, there's a lot of horrible, terrible people that are monsters, but I don't deal with them day to day. And if they do come around, I can feel enough of their energy to steer away from them. And that's the same thing with them out there. Is, I'm dealing with you guys and having a great time. I'm not dealing with no monsters here.
Well, you haven't seen.
I don't know.
When we get into the drinks, you might change that. So, Chris, while you were off at the recital, enjoying the holiday recital, Ramon completely browbeat Silverback and I that he thinks that the government's going to disclose everything and it's coming any day now.
No, no, I did not say that. I think disclosure is going to come from where it always comes from the grassroots. The one part I wanted to say earlier was that what I don't understand from them is, and it doesn't make sense to me, is that if you're out there and you want people to know about it, why don't you have a YouTube channel? Why don't you have a TikTok? Why don't you? I mean, with the technology that you would have, who's going to stop?
You mean the ETs?
Yeah.
Oh, Ramon, it's obvious as the nose on your face.
I've
They're
seen some
working-
people to claim that they're extraterrestrials, but I'm not
They're
buying it.
working on an agenda that is their agenda, not our agenda, not for our benefit. Hell, they could have stopped the cover
But who are you
50
talking
years
about?
ago.
But who are you talking about exactly? Which one? Which
The
species?
extraterrestrials. Well,
Which
who
one?
knows? How many
Well,
are there?
that's
How many
exactly.
are there, Ramon?
That's my point exactly. So
and in
you
my
can't-
paper,
you
in
can't
my
throw a whole
paper,
blanket over them. And
I
think that-
pointed out that there is probably among various groups coming here, and if there's one, I wouldn't be a bit surprised if there's 7, 8, 9 coming here.
hundreds.
I
Perhaps,
think they're living
perhaps, but they have different agendas, and I am convinced they have also had conflict between these various groups.
Absolutely.
Okay? I broke 2 stories back in the 90s that showed that clearly. Okay? At least in my mind. One involved a space shuttle mission, STS-48, where something came up and apparently something was fired at it. Now, whether we did it or somebody else, I don't know. But this craft took evasive maneuvers. And a second one involved a Soviet probe launched in '89, got to Mars, Phobos 2, and it was subsequently, according to Clav Cosmos, their space people rammed and destroyed. Now, there are fellows up there that just ain't that friendly. Now, I don't want to dominate this discussion, but I was close personal friends with Ingo Swann. I don't know if you know who that is.
Yeah, of course I do.
Okay. We had a marvelous 4.5, 5 hour dinner out here in sunny Southern California in Burbank, where I got a chance, because I had been involved for about 20 years for some really in-depth lunar research. And Swann's 1973-4 remote viewing
The Stargate
exercise where he was on the far side of the moon, observing what appeared to be construction of or add to a facility that's back there right now. Okay? And they discovered him, his mind now, he wasn't physically there. And he told me, he said, they were not happy or friendly. And he also told me, he said, you know, for months after that, I was terrified they were going to track me down and fry my brains. The guy told me this specifically. So, hey, you know, hard to say.
So-
If I can-
Sorry for going on there.
No, Ramon, I want to throw a question into you before, as you go into it. Give me your take on remote viewing, because I think you have, if I caught things correctly, you have that kind of sense of things in your books. So give me your take of that. And
I had the experience once, but where my experience is way stronger is with the astral projection, more than remote viewing. And then I explain to the audience real quick what's the difference.
What's
go
the
ahead.
difference?
Well, with remote viewing is you go into a strong theta state, and it's basically you're extending your mind out to that place, and you're still very conscious of it. With astral projection, there's, I don't know if you can say the soul or the energetic consciousness comes out, and your body is completely um, asleep, and then you go to those places. So it's different, but it's similar. But people who are usually really good at one are not that good at the other, because from my understanding, from what I remember hearing in Ingo Swan talk about this years ago, was you, if you're doing remote viewing, you have to take a lot of vitamin B12. But what I was gonna go to Silverback's point there, that if you look at the background of the books, if you look at book 3 up there, let me, where's my finger?
Yep.
There is a draconian in the background, and if you guys are familiar, they're like the reptilians, and they're the ones that are supposedly controlling this. So a lot of the stuff that I learned over the years, starting from really 2006 is when I really started really heavily looking into this, is where I get the ideas of these draconians, and then the feline beings, the Pleiadians, and the interactions that they're having with each other. And that's why I say we gotta be very careful with not to throw this blanket over every single extraterrestrial. You know, some people say like they're all demons, and I was like, well, I know some demons that are very human. Yeah.
Amen.
So
You have 2 police officers here, 2 law enforcement officers. I'm pretty sure they're in very deep agreement.
I
well,
agree
yeah.
with that 100%.
Yeah, that's why I was saying that some, you know, you can't treat every single being in the same kind of way. So when you're talking about the whole extraterrestrial, you gotta really look at it as you would a human person.
Well, I'm
Where
going to
they're coming
reserve
from, what's the
opinion until
angle.
we have a face-to-face.
About me.
No.
Oh, with them.
Face-to-face with
Yes.
them.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Because
he already made
they-
his mind up on you, Ramon. That's what he's telling you.
Yeah.
It's all good. He's still here. He didn't shut up. All right, we're coming towards the end of up to our first break. I want to make a quick remark, Ramon.
Oh, we get a
I
break?
think yeah, we have a break for about 3
Union
to 5
break or
minutes.
just a regular break?
Ka-ching!
Isn't it in your contract? I thought it would be in your contract.
From the high wire. It's that wrestling move again. I'm telling you now. It's all making sense. I wanted to pay you the great compliment that I owe a lot of my interest in all of this to my dad. You know, very strong Roman Catholic family upbringing. But when the 60s UFO craze phenomenon just broke out, he was very into it. Picked up all the books, all the magazines, and it was something that was very compatible with our. It wasn't a threat to our religion. It wasn't a threat to God's existence. It was something was happening, and it was all there. And I think that that's really cool what you were describing about your son, how he's picked up on that, and I think he's really quite fortunate, because I think you have a really cool way of putting it all together and on that. One quick thing on the astral projection and the that you talk about. When you talk about that sleep state of the body and the whole entity that you project out with, I've heard people describe that they feel like they have a cord or a connection back to their body. Like there's like a physical line that is still connecting them back to where their body is at rest. Have you experienced that?
I haven't experienced a cord, but I will tell you the huge difference between that and where my experience is the lucid dreaming, and I'll make it real short because I know we're coming up on the hour, is the energetic feeling of it. When you're having a lucid dream, you realize that you're dreaming, you touch things, don't feel right. But when you're having an out-of-body experience, energetically, you're a lot more sensitive to everything around you. And when you come back into your body, the energy is different. I don't know how else to explain it unless you experienced it yourself.
Well, I get the part about lucid dreaming when you interact with something and it's not right, and then you have this like moment of confusion, what's going on.
Yeah.
And usually if you have a really good dream director, you just get past it. You know, it okay, well, that isn't the way it's supposed to be, but we're just going to keep going with this because it's what's happening. So
Well,
I kind of get that.
sometimes you'll be lucky enough where you'll have a guide that will guide you. Sometimes they'll be visible, and most of the time they won't be visible. And a lot of the times you'll know that they weren't ever human.
Mm,
And I've had situations where they would tell me where they were from. But again, that's either the dream state or the astral world, which is easily for people to write it off.
all right, we got about a minute, so I'm going to throw this in real quickly. Do you think that aliens, extraterrestrials, can do the same kind of astral projection and
And
remote viewing
more.
and more?
I've heard a lot of people talk about, like Silverback was talking about going on the other side. I don't know how true the story is, and maybe Silverback can talk about it in the next hour, where the CIA kept sending people to remote view, and they were like, "Hey, stop doing that." And finally, they took one of the guys, and I don't know what they did to him, but the guy is supposedly still in a coma. And then after that, supposedly the CIA learned their lesson and stopped sending people. And I've heard of when you go to the government facilities here, they have astral guards
Interesting.
that are watching, and if you've ever been hit energetically in that world, it's not pain the way we feel pain, but you won't mess around.
Interesting. All right, we're at our break. RM Almonte, Ramon, is with us tonight, a very interesting writer, artist, and we're enjoying a really engaging conversation. UAP Crossfire. We'll be back on the other side of the hour. We look forward. Hopefully you'll join us. Keep sending your questions into the chat room.
Hold on to your seats, Cosmic Explorers. KGRA Digital Broadcasting, the unrivaled #1 source for raw, uncensored paranormal and UFO talk radio, has just unleashed a sizzling online merch store. Stay cosmic on the move with accessories, rugged phone cases, vibrant yoga mats, and notebooks perfect for jotting down UFO sightings. Ignite your obsession with the unexplained through bold, exclusive gear that demands attention. Kicking off with the Supernova, the store launches 2 heart-pounding collections, KGRA Digital Broadcasting and Bishop James Long. Every item you grab helps power the network and its groundbreaking shows. Stand with the truth seekers, act fast, score your stellar swag, and join the uprising today.
MUFON is the voice of thousands of like-minded people who want to see change. We speak up against UFO secrecy. We engage governments and agencies around the world on the topic. We share information with the public through our journal, website, newsletter, social media, and even our own TV channel. When you join MUFON, you add your voice to the cause. Few things are more important in our time than understanding the UFO question. Join MUFON. Find your friends.
Well, welcome back to UAP Crossfire on KGR Radio DB. Most of the teams here, as we said, the Padre is out, coming back from some medical checks, and we're hoping and we look forward to hearing the good news on that. Christopher Pernos joined us in fresh from the theater district up there in Buffalo for the Christmas holiday theater takes in.
I will
There
tell
should
you,
be-
winters here. It is colder than. Oh my god!
Yeah, well, you'll be really feeling sympathetic to Don's situation with the light 80s, and then he started to tell us he was hoping for a white Christmas. So
Yeah.
the world's tiniest violin was playing.
You know what? How about if I send you some snow?
Hey, that'd be
Happy
great.
to
Would
send
you?
that down to you.
Would
Yeah.
you?
Hey Don, what state you're in?
California.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because it's like 65 here.
My home state is Pennsylvania. I came from central western PA, but my lady was out here, and of course, hey, what could I do?
Chris
Yeah,
is
so
in,
now you have to
New York
suffer.
area. He's in the Buffalo, New York area, and I am up in Maine. And the Padre is in South Dakota.
I will be in Maine actually, probably in March.
Excellent. Well, I'm
Yeah.
gonna probably find you.
Yeah, I forgot which.
I'm
It's
guessing
not-
you're probably going to go to Portland. That would be
No, it's gonna be like an hour from Portland.
oh,
I-
even better.
Yeah, I believe it's an hour south. But I will let you know definitely
Well.
when I go up there.
You might see the guy with the sunglasses showing up. We'll grab
There
a
we
picture
go.
and stuff. We'll have some fun. So, where we left off, we were talking about remote viewing and your-
Augusta.
Augusta. Yeah, that's about 2 hours or so, hour and a half north of Portland. That's the capital. So you'll enjoy a really good crowd.
Is that close to you, or
Oh,
without giving your location?
It's not too far. I'm never more than 6 hours away from any place I need to be.
He's a pilot, Ramon. I mean, he can fly wherever he wants to fly, you know.
Generally. So
I'm gonna have to introduce you to my son then.
oh yeah, well we'll catch up on some good family stuff on that as well. I'm looking forward to sending him some stuff. So here we are, Chris. Welcome.
Yes. Thank
We're gonna
you.
let you jump in there since you were denied the beautiful weather reports from sunny Southern California. Ramon suffering in the 60s there. Just,
Yeah, I have to put on socks.
Yeah, he's got to put on socks. Yeah. So with these two sweeties, I want to turn it over to you. Jump in a little bit here, please.
Ramon, first of all, thank you for coming on the show. I'm sorry I was a
Thank
little
you for
late. I
having
was
me.
having my first granddaughter's recital and stuff. But
That's
I
more
would like to
important.
ask
That's
you-
more important than this.
Yeah, I will, but this is important too because you first
It
started.
is,
talking
but then
about-
they grow up.
yeah, and then their head spins around and they talk in a different language,
Exactly.
and they don't want
And they hate you.
Yeah, well, I went through all that. I don't have to worry about that now because I can just give them back to the parents. Say, it's your problem now.
Yeah.
You were a problem when you were young, and God's getting back at you right now because I asked him to and stuff. So that's the good thing about being a grandparent. You can go, see ya, I'm going back home. Anyways, I'd like to start out with this disclosure thing because that's really something I think people are expecting disclosure. And Don brought up a good point about, the different species, which one and stuff. And, last week we had a guest on the show that really kind of shocked us right at the end. I think Commander was absolutely shocked when, we were talking about extraterrestrials being here on this earth. And I asked him, I said, do you think they're here now? And 2 hours we tried to grill him and he wouldn't really talk about it. Then all of a sudden, right at the last 5 minutes, he opens up and says, well, yeah, I was in an elevator with one, pretty much is what he said. The eyes started flickering different ways, like a reptilian. Yeah, and stuff. So I'm going to ask you the same question. I mean, you've done a lot of research on this, and this is something that some people are actually saying, that they're among us right now. They're living with us. They're inhabited on this planet. What is your thoughts about that?
I think they've always been on this planet, and if you think about it, let's look at it from a human point of view, right? We learn about some tribe that we discover in let's say Brazil. Use that as- And we're going to go over there and study them if they're not rightfully violent in some cases, because they remember the stories of their ancestors dealing with the
Yeah, as long as they're not cannibalisms and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, they have their own horror stories compared for us. But some of these tribes, they come in contact with us, and we want to study them, learn about them. It's the same kind of thing where they're coming here for a bunch of different reasons. Maybe they want to take minerals. Maybe they want to do experiments on us. Maybe they just are anthropologists and want to learn. So I think every idea that you have, that the reason why they're coming here, I think all of that comes into play, depending what group you're talking about.
But here's
and even within that group, even within that species, which group they're dealing with.
But here's the difference, Ramon, and that you brought up a good point. But the difference is when we go to study a new culture, we make ourselves known. We're not hiding it, you know, behind.
Not always.
Not always.
Well, yeah,
Not always.
I mean,
And it also depends. It also depends why we're going there. Are we going there to steal the land because maybe we found gold there?
Okay,
Or, because I mean, some of these native people have stories of companies throwing arsenic, you know, flying over and throwing arsenic over them, and then that's why they don't want to deal with the outside world, because they feel like everything on the outside, especially people who are not indigenous like them, they you know, there's some of them even have horror stories about what they think you'll do to them if you take them.
Sure. So you have the whole
and
range.
I agree with what you said, but here's the thing that I'm looking at this as with extraterrestrials. If they're living among us, if they're living here, they, you know, people have said, "Oh, I've had encounters with aliens, and they're so wonderful. You know, they want to bring us to the next level. They want to do this." They've had a lot of time. They haven't done squat. I mean, if you think about it, they haven't helped us with pollution. They haven't helped us, you know, with energy. They haven't helped us stopping wars and things of that nature. And if we're going to learn from them, they need to make themselves known to us and start teaching us, and that has not happened. Don't you agree with that?
Yeah, they haven't come fully out, and it's what I was saying earlier about why is my frustration where, okay, if you really want us to know about you, why aren't you doing a TikTok? Why don't you have a YouTube channel? You know, because especially nowadays, it's way easier than compared to 20 years ago. And that is very frustrating for me. And there are some people on TikTok that claim that they are. Most of them are doing channelings, which I think some of them might be onto something, but some of them are not. You know, you don't know what exactly you're channeling.
Right. I believe that extraterrestrials are here, but I believe that they're not. And we got to go species by species because we just don't know. But I truly believe that some of them are here and could give a damn about us. They, you know, they say.
But yet, if you follow that along, Chris, they could give a damn about us. They still do a pretty good act of staying cloaked, of not being obvious.
Well, the
so
thing
it's
is,
almost like there was an agreement. Let me give you the case in point. That's kind of a human case. We have the continent of Antarctica. It has incredible mineral riches. It has a lot of things. We have the countries of the world, or most of the countries of the world, have agreed that no one will ever claim the continent. There's a couple countries that do, from South America, that lay some claims to parts of it. You had during World War II, the Nazis tried to claim it. They overflew
the Project High Jump.
So you have this continent, and we have sites on there. But now we're starting to get to a point with technology that it was easy to sign that agreement that said, we're not going to destroy the environment there. We're not going to damage it. We're going to only go there for research and scientific. We're not going to have a military presence, all those kind of things after High Jump and a bunch of the other things that occurred. My point is, you start to see that slip a little bit more as technology comes along that says, well, now we're starting to reach the point we can get to those resources, that we can do some of that stuff. Now, do we get into a physical kind of conflict trying to get this part over? Was it an agreement? Did everybody meet behind the rings of Saturn and said, and I mean that in a humorous way, not in a sarcastic way, okay, the third planet, here's the deal. Here's the rules. Here's how we're playing. Kind of the Predator model kind of thing that goes on.
There's some really strange things going on in Antarctica because my daughter was part of a research team. She actually went there. And I mean, when she was in college, she got picked for a research team, went to Antarctica. She goes, Dad, it's not like people would think there. Yeah, there's a lot of snow. There's a lot of things. But if you travel certain areas, it's 70 degrees.
No, that's that.
I got pictures.
I need to talk to your daughter. I've been there 3 times.
I tell you, she took pictures of it. They hiked up to a certain area, and they had to shed their winter stuff. Now I'm not saying every area is like that, but there are areas that are there's no snow.
Well,
I heard about that.
I've never been to Antarctica. By the way, I would love to be able to go there. Probably never will, but
10 grand and you can go.
Yeah, you guys know my history bent, and roughly 12,000 years ago, something horrible happened here on the planet, the Younger Dryas thing. And if you believe some of the accounts, individuals that were here left, later came back, and apparently, if you believe other stories, some of those people are still down there in Antarctica, underground. Now, I know, Commander Cobra, we've discussed this a little bit. I don't know if you give credence to that, but there are definitely areas in Antarctica that nobody is allowed to approach. For what reason, I have no idea. Probably because it's somebody else's property and they don't want any trespassers. Cobra, what do you think about that?
So I've had a rather large view of this. There are spots that I know that I have flown a helicopter into Antarctica that myself and the science team that I were with the first time people had ever been there. It's just that simple. It's a arid desert environment. It doesn't really snow there very much.
How far south were you allowed to go?
All the way to the pole. I've flown to the pole a couple times.
And there wasn't no hole.
No, not that I saw. Now, it is one of the most difficult places in the world to operate. And that's the reason why I am kerfuffing at the temperature, because on a day there where it got in the 32 to 34 degrees Fahrenheit, it felt like you could be down in shorts. I had friends that would wear shorts there at those temperatures, because when the wind wasn't blowing and you got into around a little bit above freezing, it was such a tremendous change from what our daily living was there. And this is during the daylight summer months of which is right now. The operations are at full force down in there.
The penguin summers.
The penguin summers, right. So all around the outside edge, with the exception of right at the pole, are all countries, different types of stations where they are performing research and doing work. And there's all kinds of work that was there. I have heard every story that you can possibly hear from FEMA camps there. There was, some incredible stories that talks about the battles that were fought between this alien race, extraterrestrial race. Operation High Jump was a cover for that. And at first I would say no. And I still tend to lean that way, but there's a lot of things that have happened. A lot of things that have come out as of late of under the surface areas where they have found bodies of water there. Some of the geography there are very, very deep mountain type structures that are filled with ice. I believe we were at 9 close to 9,500 feet above sea level at the South Pole, landing on ice sheets that were many miles thick at that particular part in there. So it's an amazing place. Could things have happened or are happening down there? Absolutely. It is huge. There's no question about it. But as I had a tangle one time with a flat earth person who explained to me that that didn't happen, what I saw didn't happen, I said, well, it did, because I'm telling you it did happen. I said, where's the end of this if Antarctica is not, if we're not on a sphere and this is happening? Because we circumnavigated the entire continent. It was part of an inspection survey, and that's part of how we do business down there. Everybody takes turns kind of checking everybody else's stuff
So
out.
you didn't see the ice wall?
Never saw the ice wall. Never got to the edge. I'm still I'm pretty sure we're on a sphere. I just can't figure out how all the mechanics work. It'll be interesting if I'm proven wrong on that. The reason I bring all that up, and on that, there are still things that are coming out now. One of the things that I learned when I was down there, I got to a spot, one of the scientists showed me this was petrified wood that was there. So obviously part of the continent came from someplace that was in a habitable temperature zone before it got to where it is now. Could it be the Gondoland? Could it be earlier part? Is it the part of the cataclysmic events that Don was talking about? Any of those things are possible. There's other areas where I went with scientists where we would land on the ice field. They would go out and they were taking out asteroids, meteors, things that had hit, not asteroids, but meteorites when they come to the surface. And they were tracking things from Mars, which I had a pretty scientifically minded. And they were explaining to me how they were coming up with this. Moon rocks that had come there from different collisions of things that caused, put it in there, got into orbit, came down. You have this giant ice field, something very hot comes in, it hits it, it melts, it rapidly cools down, and you have this preservation part. And I can tell you some of the funniest stories that you can ever imagine with a community of very science-minded people supported by some very, very tough hombres and ladies that work down there to keep these sites working, especially our big one, McMurdo. Someday, probably off air, Ramon, you and I will talk. I will tell you about the Fish Boy thing that went on. It's a complete spoof. It was a complete joke that we played on one of the members of my military team that I was down there with, but he was convinced that we were doing human fish hybridization in Antarctica.
Oh man, I'm gonna see it. I'm gonna see that on the YouTube later.
Alcohol was involved.
It always is.
So,
What?
absolutely gorgeous place. Do I think there's a possibility of anything happening down there? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It's just so vast. It is so unbelievable. But the amount of energy, the amount of physical energy that it takes to operate and survive down there is unbelievable. So it has to be a very, very advanced society that is operating and living it. We tried in the 60s up in Greenland. They had built underground, under ice bases in there. In fact, some of it's starting to be found and seen again. They're even talking about trying to put a nuclear reactor in there to have that, because it was the Cold War generating, to have that ability to work in that part of the world. They even had, I believe, attempts to put in kind of nuke-powered kind of capabilities onto the continent itself. I don't think it went very far. I think they only went as far as having it with ships. The icebreakers, the Russians run a series of nuclear-powered icebreakers, very powerful, which is really handy because they're very clean. As long as everything's operating properly, they have lots of power and they don't have to burn fuel and do that. And Antarctica's operation requires everything that goes in, as much trash as possible has to be taken out. So you're constantly building up your reserves to get through for the next season. And then when the season opens up, you're taking out the trash and you're bringing in the stuff to prepare for the next season. It's very, very interesting. I did similar type of work up in the Arctic as well, and in Alaska. In Alaska, this time of year, they're up there building the ice highway. Right now, pretty much around the clock, they are laying down fresh water and putting roads to all in Prudhoe Bay, Dead Horse, Alaska. They're putting out all the ice roads so they can get to all the different sites where they're pumping oil. because in the summer, that doesn't exist. It's very marshy. Everything is almost helicopter movement to those spots. So now all the stuff that's being hauled in and hauled out for getting ready for the summer operations. Again, places that were working in temperatures that are averaging minus 10, minus 20 degrees in operations, and there's no daylight or very, very little daylight when you get up to that latitude for this time of year. The opposite down there. Amazing places. If we do have alien extraterrestrial visitors there, they're very sophisticated in how they're running their op there. And I'd never heard much about activity down there in that area, and I've always been keen to listen to it.
Yeah.
Plenty in Australia, plenty in New Zealand.
Well, one of the things I was going to bring up, because you were asking earlier about disclosure, I wonder how much the whole idea of, like the Star Trek idea of
The Prime Directive.
Yeah, it's a Prime Directive.
You can
and in my books, I have something similar like that, where they can't really just come down and just interact with people and stuff like that. And I always wonder with the whole ancient alien thing, because of course we looked at whatever that was as gods. So, and I think the most recent time that happened was during World War II in Papua New Guinea, where they looked at the U.S. military as gods and the planes. And until recently, there were still those indigenous tribes were actually making statues, wooden statues out of those planes.
Yeah, well, as you said, they wanted them to come back. They liked the things that they got from them, that they were there, and they would make leaf and wood branch structures to look like airplanes along the old runways to try to, to convince them that to come down and land again.
Yeah.
So, I think it's a very dramatic model. That
Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola, yeah. I'm sure that we'll have to get Coca-Cola to be one of the advertisers for the show.
Nestle. Staying on the topic of because the whole topic of disclosure is very dear to me. Hence why I write about this kind of stuff. And in the beginning of it, it was something that I was trying to do, where I was trying to bring disclosure in the books, bring disclosure to the planet. And it ended up being that let's just take everybody off planet because it's too complicated. So in the books, the humans end up breaking kind of away from our civilization and creating their own kind of thing on a planet called New Lemuria. So, and I'm speaking directly.
All 7
fictional.
billion of us?
No. Very tiny group of 500 to 1,000 people. And I'm speaking completely fictional here.
So I think, and a little kidding, a little jest, I think I'd be willing to sign up for that sometimes when I look around what's going on.
Yeah, except you'll be caught up in a war,
right,
between the Draconians. So it's actually not better. They have better technology because they, now it's open contact. They're dealing with the extraterrestrials, and that's the whole point of the whole story of where there's already quote unquote a civilization living on Mars that supposedly was brought from here to there, where there are. I wouldn't say it's utopia. It sounds from the rumors, if you believe it, it's quite the opposite of utopia. But they have like open contact and stuff like that on Mars. When I was doing research for my books, that's some of the stories I came across.
Now, are you talking that it's currently underway or it happened in the past? Because we've actually had a guest, the good friend of Don's. He's
Actually, Andrew D. Basiago, I got to meet him once, and
my God,
he supposedly claims that.
Please,
I didn't say
mental illness is a serious thing. Ramon.
Have you met him? Have you talked to him face to face?
Buddy, I've been in this field close to 40 years. I've known them all.
Okay. Well, I got to meet him face to face. He didn't seem like he had mental illness. Is
Yeah,
he telling
well,
the
him
truth?
and
I
him
don't
and the
know.
other guy that went to Mars with Barack Obama back in the 80s, you know all about that, right?
Yeah, yeah, I got to
Yeah.
hear that. His story does sound crazy, but I
Sounds
keep,
crazy?
I mean, you sound crazy too. If we want to be realistic, I mean, we all sound crazy here. I mean, listen to the name of the show. If we're gonna call people crazy, we might as well point fingers at ourselves. Because what's the name
Oh,
of the show?
that I completely agree with.
What's the name
Yeah,
of the show?
UAP Crossfire.
Crossfires.
I'll drink to
So,
that one.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, I don't know. I mean, I got to speak to him directly, meet him face to face, sat down with him for half an hour. And I've met people with mental illnesses. Like, I grew up in New York, so.
I met a lot of people on the street with mental illness. Oh, yeah, I know.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I
Don,
didn't get that, but
I want to say Brandenburg, but I don't think I'm saying the name right.
John Brandenburg?
Yeah, who our guest that was on? Am I
Right.
saying? Am I recalling him correctly?
Dr. John
Dr.
John
Brandenburg.
Brandenburg, yeah.
He is the fellow that discovered that at least 2 humongous nuclear detonations happened on Mars. Mars, and he wrote a book about it. He found the element that proved his thesis, xenon 129, which only comes from one of 2 places, either a massive hydrogen warhead or a supernova, and there were no supernovas in the background. So, yeah, Brandenburg believes that there was at one point a civilization on Mars. Eventually, they either mostly died out. It's believed some of them may have been able to emigrate to Earth. This is another theory, maybe our ancestors may have originally been Martians. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not saying I buy it, but it's out there.
Well, and what I found interesting, he works. He's been involved with a lot of space exploration work on that.
Department of Defense
Yeah,
stuff.
he put it all out there, and he's very, very open about his conclusions, and he backs it up. And we've had other guests like that, and some of us will call it out when we think someone is not coming across with all of it. But the thing I'm going to draw on, Ramon, is that this particular theme has showed up a number of times, and along the way, little pieces of evidence are there for you to look at and conclude.
yeah, you can't take anything that is said with conclusion unless you really experience it. Even something simple as like, I saw Cobra Commander cheating on his wife. You can't even take.
I'm glad you got the name backwards, because that guy, you can't trust Cobra Commander. He's the whole thing with G.I. Joe, and he's a
Commander Cobra. Sorry,
Commander Cobra. Yeah,
I like Cobra Commander. Sorry, I grew up.
I know. No, it's a whole G.I. Joe thing, and now we're going to get like an infringement claim or something. Everybody go out and buy Cobra Commander for Christmas.
I'm going to get you the helmet. Get you the helmet.
And I think there's kind of a reptilian look to him, so I understand why you went that way. The whole draconian kind of thing going on with that dude. So I understand what that's about.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is going back to where you're saying, Don. There's a 10-year-old. At the time when he made the video, I think he was like 10 or 12. That he supposedly remember his past life, and he talked about all those things: the war and the explosion, and them escaping to Earth and stuff.
You're talking about Good?
No. This was a young kid, not Corey Good. Is a very young kid. I can't remember his name, but because Corey Good supposedly was sent there to Mars, which is different.
And he was forced in a court of law to admit it was all crap.
Yeah,
You
but
know
I'm not
about
talking
that,
about-
right?
I'm not talking about Corey Good. We're not talking about.
Okay.
Corey. We're talking about somebody's past life experience, which is completely different.
So let's delve into that a little bit, because I'm curious to get your take on it. Um,
Well, when you got a young kid, like let's say around, I think he was when he started talking about he was like 7 or 8 years old. He has to be an adult now.
yeah, sure.
So he was talking about, you know, I don't know how many
Experiences
thousand.
You're not talking about Andrew Basegio, right?
No,
No,
I'm talking
okay,
about
okay.
I'm talking about a kid. These are old people. You're talking about old men. I'm talking about a young kid.
No, I'm asking. I'm not talking about them. I'm asking.
Yeah, I know how much you like those guys. I'm gonna give them your number and make sure they call you.
So what I'm
But, no,
driving at is, Ramon, I'm not one that tends to believe in incarnation. I don't dismiss it. I'm one that, although I follow Christianity, I never want to put on any kind of condition on what is capable that God's capable of doing. That's kind of my clause as I approach this. The book Soul Survivor, you may be familiar with it.
yeah,
A young boy starts to make these recollections and these discussions about flying off a carrier in World War II, trying to save his buddies. The parents are absolutely just amazed what's happening. The father takes the route. There's something I got to disprove this. This just can't be. It doesn't make any sense. He becomes deeply involved. His son produces more and more information, more and more detail about the flying, the unit, the ship. He actually tracks the unit down, and it really appears that this boy, for some period of time, shared the soul of this aviator that died of World War II and somehow melded with
sunk.
this young boy.
Didn't he sink to the bottom of the sea?
Right. His
His
plane
plane?
crashed. He died. And
Yeah.
then, number of years later, his parents are in Hawaii, I believe, if I remember the story correctly, they're in there for their honeymoon. And that's where she conceives him. And this kind of connection kind of comes out. As time went by, the father's convinced the level of detail that this young boy comes up with is absolutely amazing that happens.
And didn't he connect with
The group,
the soldier's
ship,
wife, and he knew
yeah,
he
and
knew
he was
things.
able to
Yeah.
the detail. So things came up that just defied. You didn't read this someplace. He had details and experiences that there was no possible way he had any
He was too
connection.
young to, yeah.
And it was,
I remember that story, but
it's
there's also
decades apart.
the stories of people that have gone to jail because young kids are describing the murder of another person. They know where the body's at, and they know how the person was murdered with what weapon, and they're way too young to be able to
To have any
make this.
connection to it, to have
Yeah.
had any kind of firsthand.
They weren't even born yet when it
right,
happened.
exactly.
And so they're saying, yeah, that was me he murdered, or she murdered.
Wow.
So there's a lot of
Does
things
that fit
out
into
there.
your realms of possibility? It sounds like you probably are in agreement with me that this is a possible kind of thing that happens.
I think everything is possible. There's a lot of things that you can't write out dismiss, but you can't take in everything, and it becomes such a gray zone to know what's what, and it gets so confusing. And sometimes, like, that's why with this you have to kind of step back and just kind of look at it as much as possible, and just sometimes just say I just don't know, because to try to understand anything anybody says or is claiming it gets very murky very quick. But I want to ask you guys, have you guys ever heard of SETI?
SETI, the
No, not SETI, SETI.
ESETI.
SETI.
Yeah, so it's up in Trout Lake, Washington, and it's run by this guy named James Gilliland, and he supposedly is a contactee. And when you go up there, you will see some things that you don't know. I didn't see anything landing. I didn't get no license plates or anything like that. But I did see things fly over, stop, shine a bright light, and then fly back the opposite direction.
And this was where?
In Trout Lake, Washington. So not too far from Mount Adam, if you're familiar with that region. So you have Mount Rainier, Mount Hood.
Okay, so this is the Washington State area that you're talking
Yeah.
about, Northwest. Okay.
And
I
that's where
I was going to say, I'm sorry, I interrupt you, but I do want to ask you this question.
yeah,
We're running out of time. What do you think of the abduction theory?
I think, well, first of all, people are really experiencing something. What it is exactly, I don't know. I myself, knock on wood, have never experienced something like that. But some people claim that that could be a government psyop, and they're just, so they can do their own thing. Other people say that, yeah, it is. In my books, I put it as a real thing, and that people were getting abducted and stuff like that, and how the group is actually kind of fighting against the Zeti Reticuli.
Do you believe that there are abductions that are actually happy?
Absolutely, because if you talk to a deer or a squirrel or any kind of animal, they've been abducted, tagged and stuff like that. So I think humans. I don't know how, Don, you feel about Weber. What's his last name?
What Wesley?
No, is it Wesley? No.
I got a couple of squirrels in the backyard. I'll try to ask him something. But
Yeah. No, I'm thinking he's
you
up by your area in New
I
York.
want to say Weber, but I'm not pronouncing.
Yeah,
it right.
something like that. I'm not pronouncing it right either. He's actually the guy who was the first one, the whole probing thing. He was the first one to come out with it. Whitley Strieber.
Whitley Strieber, right? Communion.
Yeah.
He wrote a book called Communion.
Yes.
Communion was his book.
So, he supposedly has a tag in the back of his ears, and a lot of people have claimed that. I think it would make complete sense for them to do something like that, because how else, if they were tracking your family and tracking your personal DNA, how else would you follow this family? Like we follow families of whales all the time.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, we tag mammal species all the time. It wouldn't surprise me that they would.
Well, we had Travis Walton on the show. I've met Travis. I think he had a legitimate experience. There's nothing that he talked about that I could say, well, this is just doesn't make sense. It's an amazing telling. He's been very consistent. None of these people are. A couple of the conferences I've been to, the groups that are counseling these people or providing services to them when they want to explain their experience. As you said, Ramon, they've legitimately experienced something. Does that mean every case that comes up, every claim? No,
absolutely no.
But that doesn't dissuade from it. Again, that goes back to my my running theory of, if you can't control the information, flood the field. And I think that's a lot of the things that go on with this. You have people and the media that we live in now that are flooding the field. One of my questions I always put out, here we are, we're all walking around with a handheld device that allows us to connect on the planet, right? We can even do movies, short movies on our phone and send it out. There are people that are doing full movie productions with nothing but iPhones and Google phones. Where's the great pictures of UAPs and UFOs flying by? Where's those crystal clear pictures that we were getting with crummy film? So now, do we have an interaction? Do we have? It's just that they've caught on to this, and they're not allowing us to see it the same way. Lots of areas. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was going to say that I don't care what footage you catch; it's still going to be fake.
Explain that.
So, if you notice, for example, there's that one in Las Vegas where the kids supposedly were out there in the front yard, and there was an extraterrestrial. And
out.
Yep.
We actually had a little bit on the show about that.
Oh yeah. So there's that, and there's, especially in South America, you'll see people are way more open. There's a lot of footage out there, but the thing is that none of the footage, even like I said earlier today, if I brought one on the show right now, everybody would say it was fake. So I don't think there's any evidence that we could bring out that would convince anybody, unless the United States says, unless they say that, everything is going to be fake.
So that leads to
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. And it goes back to what I was saying before about we've got to this point that we doubt everything because reality has been so manipulated by our ability to, as we said, you can take your dreams, you can go to AI, you can create a film of that, then you can correct colors and images, you can import things, you can put things in. Get the right skin colors and things like that, as we were talking about before. So yeah, I completely understand that. Not only take it this last piece, it's come up maybe 4 or 5 times this year that we have been foretold by a number of people. Von Braun is one of the more famous ones, that we're going to have a false flag alien invasion scenario that's going to be used as the means to force world governments to collapse, to conform into the only way we can save ourselves, and it's not going to be real. What's your thoughts on that?
When I was overseas, I spoke to some people that seemed like they could be CIA, but they would never say it. Just their behaviors and stuff like that. But there's false flags on everything, and like you were saying, it gets so murked up you don't know what's left or right, or even center. You think you're looking at the center and it's really the right, and you think you're looking at the right, it's really the left. So I believe that is a possibility. That is a very high possibility.
Do you think
we probably won't know till 100 years later?
All right, that's a fair point. Do you think though we're at the point now that we're suspicious of it enough that we would, a large number of people would still have a critical thinking kind of analysis of it? To me, that's what's really become the shakiest part of where we are right now as a global civilization. We don't critically analyze things enough. If somebody says do this, we do it, and we don't think, well, wait a minute, if I take this or if I do this, will it have harm? Will it have harm to the environment? What does it mean long term? We don't even want to take that. We just, okay, right now we're living in the moment in a way that's really kind of strange. You spent a lot of time in Japan. I don't think there's probably a greater group of people who really live in the moment, but they're connected to everything else around it. We're not doing that anymore.
No,
we're off into a spot, and we don't even think about possible consequences or responsibilities for it. We just go into it, and then look at the mess that we have to clean up now, that we have to fix up now.
Yeah. One thing I've noticed about just Western society in general is the extreme skepticism. How we're so over skeptical on things that I'll give you an example. I was talking to this American guy in Japan, and I'm telling him like, kangaroos, they'll choke each other out in a fight. He's like, oh, that's BS. And I'm like showing him the videos, like, there you go. And he just stood quiet. And I'm just like, why are you being so over skeptical over something like that? I didn't say aliens were choking each other.
Well, that he believed. That's the approach that you have to start with.
Well,
we do live on a flat Earth. Come on.
Thank you very much.
And I have a full head of hair.
Wow, this is getting interesting.
Yeah, it's just the optical illusions. Oh no, what's my favorite one? It's the swamp gas. That's why you don't see the hair.
But piggybacking on what Commander said, they have tried, and I agree with you, they have done so many false flag black swans operations. I mean, you go back years, they have done all kinds of operations where you won't know, and we still don't know,
And even when we do know, we still teach the other one.
But Project Bluebeam, which has been put out to the public, where they think they can do a hologram of either aliens or Christ or Jesus, to bring about a central government. Now, this isn't theory, because if you look at some of the stuff that they're doing, I mean, they're trying to make all currency digital. Now, how successful they're going to be with that? Some countries are doing it, some countries are not. For instance, China is doing it. They have a digital currency.
They done it.
Yeah. So you're looking at that. You're looking at a huge amount of cameras that are being put up all over the world to monitor people, and yet, what in some respects, and I go back to China too, that they can control your movements and control what you can buy and everything by simply shutting off your accounts if you want to buy stuff and things of that nature. And this is something that the United States has toyed with in certain respects. I'm not saying they're doing it. I'm not saying they're going to do it, but they have toyed with the idea of making a digital currency, controlling bank accounts. I'll give you an example: Canada. So to me, I mean, the only reason we haven't seen a Project Bluebeam is because there's so much content out there showing that it's phony, telling people that it's phony. I mean, you go on the internet, you look up Project Bluebeam, there's a half a dozen people on it, and all kinds of places say, oh, yeah, this is going to be a government conspiracy.
Yeah.
And a conspiracy doesn't work if it's too well known. I mean, people will always question it.
But the question always then it becomes a double-edged sword, because is that idea of Project Bluebeam the psyops?
Well,
Yeah, is the false flag a false flag?
The false flag,
That
exactly.
leads to it. And I mean, this is the level of craziness that you get into when you're not even sure. Now, I'm going to ask you to frame it this way. You talked about in some of the dream states and some of the things that you experienced, you knew when you touched something in your lucid dreaming that it didn't match the known tactile feel or the conditions that you would expect it. And as I told you, when I have those kinds of dreams, I have a really good dream producer that says, just go along with it. It's okay. We'll get the algorithm better the next time we dream this kind of thing. We'll make it better the next time we get into this kind of part of it. Are we putting ourselves in that kind of a loop? Is all the things because I want to bring it back to the disclosure piece. Is that what we're up against in the disclosure? We've had congressional hearings. We've had these people come out. Ramon, we were flabbergasted. We talked about it at least for a couple months. One of the witnesses that was in front of Congress pretty calmly stated that people had been killed, that had been murdered, that had been taken out
Suicide
in
is,
this
I like
part.
to say.
And nothing happened. There wasn't even like a blip. There wasn't even like no one's standing up, no gavel hit. Who are you talking about? I know you've been given immunity or whatever it is, you're under protection, but how do you make a statement like that? And it never even seemed to cause a ripple.
Nope.
Somebody threw a rock in the pond and nothing happened on the water. That's amazing to me.
Yeah.
Your thoughts, your reaction to that. Where are you on that?
Well, I think I have said this several times, where I just feel that at this point where we're at, we're so what's the word I'm looking for?
Numb?
Yes. We're so numb that you're not gonna get any reactions, and the people who do react, the rest of the world looks at you like you're crazy.
Do you think that that's on purpose? That this numbness, this numbing is on purpose?
Absolutely. But I think,
Well, Chris DiPerno and I have both been involved in homicide investigations. And when David Grush admitted that human beings had been terminated, apparently by design, that were involved with the UFO thing, Chris and I had a number of conversations about that, didn't we, Chris?
Oh, absolutely.
Could not freaking believe that nobody in that numbnut Congress picked up on that. Nobody. They're talking about American citizens being apparently murdered by representatives of their government.
Above their pay grade.
Nothing. Nothing.
That probably scared them, if anything. So he's like, "Oh, I'm not getting involved in that one."
But here's the other thing too, and I want to jump on the congressional hearings. This is why people think they're a joke, and I think they're a joke. And the reason being is because I watched the head of naval intelligence, one of the heads of deputy chief of naval intelligence, try to show a picture of an unidentified flying object that was totally blurry. You couldn't see it. You know, he says, "Oh, we just don't have the technology to make this better." And I'm like, wait a minute, you got satellites that can read a license plate from space. You have all kinds of technology, and you mean to tell me that this photo is the best you could do? You just don't believe. You start to go, this is just a dog and pony show.
Yeah.
And it's just throw a little bone to the American people, misdirect them into the way they want to go, and then the poor congressmen and congresswomen say, "Oh, well, the Intelligence Bureau won't tell us what's really going on, or we can't get any information." And people just say, "Oh, the hell with it."
This one goes to Commander. You're a pilot, and my favorite one I heard a skeptic was saying, it was on Larry King's show years ago. And
Well, we have a man that sat with Larry King at Don Ecker was with him, but go ahead.
and he was saying that that pilots are not trained observers, and I was like, what kind of BS is that? You know how dangerous that is for somebody to be operating what is it, several $billion machine with missiles that cost, some of them
Millions themselves. Yeah.
millions themselves, and they don't know what they're looking at.
Right. Or to say that people that are in that particular area, it's sort of like saying, like what Don and Chris were talking about, they hear those kinds of statements from a law enforcement background, and there's no reaction to someone was terminated. Oh, well, okay, next point, next slide, go ahead and do that. So, of course, those are, I never had a chance to talk to you before the show, Ramon, and I'm really enjoying tonight's show. Thank you again.
And thank you, everyone.
We're approaching towards the end, but I everything that I had seen up into probably about 4 or 5 years ago, I found out was something that we were flying, some kind of technology that we were using. Now, could it have possibly been reverse engineered, advancements? That I couldn't tell you. But things that we saw, things that were going on, were either black programs or programs that were under a lot of cloak of cover. The stuff when I was much younger, the F-117 was coming out, and there were so many technological challenges when that plane was flying, and the military knew that they had to do a really good job to protect its capabilities while they were checking and testing it. So they had very traditional airplanes that showed up on radar. One would fly in front, one would fly in back, and the 117 would be in the middle of it. And they painted them black, and they would actually leave them on the ramp where they could be seen. And, people that were really, just hunting for the clues and the information were taking pictures of them. And they were able to successfully run that. And it was a very successful program because it allowed us to maintain a very lengthy lead. And when Desert Storm came, it was one of the reasons that we were able to do the kinds of things that were done. And I know it sounds counterintuitive, but we actually saved lives because we were able to precisely go after the targets that we went after. And people, the aircraft were not easily seen. They were not easily picked up on radar. So I look at all those events that go around that. I've had one that did not fit the physics. The way it worked, the way the light bent was very much like you talked about when you were up at the Lake Washington site and you saw this thing, it stopped and it went. Mine was a very quick stop and a very quick, hard bend away. In my mind, that means we have gone to other power sources, other capabilities, or it wasn't ours. It wasn't from this planet, or it wasn't from our civilization technology. If we have construction by ETs on the planet, got to throw that in there to the middle of it.
Yeah.
So I think that they're there. But when people make those remarks, well, people aren't trained to make that. You don't need to be trained to describe what you saw. You can ask a child, what did you see? Child's not trained. In fact, they're usually the best people because they have no preconceived. They're just going to tell you what they saw. They're going to explain it. They can say, no, that it looked more this way, it looked that way. So those kinds of defaming statements are there because I think people want to try to set the conversation at a certain spot and a certain level and then operate from that spot.
And one thing I kept seeing was when they would show, like, they're talking about lights that are doing this and bending, boom, and then they have the astronomer look at it and you see a slow moving, oh, that's a satellite. That's not what we were talking about.
Right.
That's a big one I saw in the news consistently. But I've spoken to several military people, and Don, you probably know this too as well, that whatever whatever we know, there's 3 generations ahead of that.
Anything you see flying today, probably you should tack another 30 to 50 years of technology on it.
Yeah. And I've heard that same statement that Don made. I've heard it said over and over again.
I think the reason
by guys as young as Don.
We're right up against the end of the show, so I want to jump in and say, Ramon, thank you so much. I really
thank you for
appreciate
having me here.
And your business manager grabbing the call, jumping on. Everybody, please check his website out, grab the books, and if you get anywhere close to where he's doing this, be part of the historic 50-state book tour. And I'm excited, and I will travel to find you. We'll keep in touch. We'll grab a call, hopefully, too. I know you're a very busy man, and I want to do something with your young lad. Fogs of Time is coming out. It's a new book, new series.
Thank you again, Ramon.
Thank you, Ramon.
Thank you guys for having me here.
It's been wonderful. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Feliz Navidad.
Likewise. And have a great night, everyone. And thank you for letting me come on. Appreciate it.
You got it.
Greatest audience in the planet. See us next week. Last big show before the Christmas break.
Woohoo!